Welcome to another episode of the Human Experience podcast. This is your host, Eldin Hassa. Today's episode is sponsored by Formula EQ Academy, formulaeq.com. They are actually running a 2-day health reset retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona on March 29 and March 30. It is actually a neuroscience-based theta rewiring experience, fully immersive, using as many of the 5 senses, the ultimate mind-body reset. You will get utilizing theta brainwave activation, guided meditations, breathwork, somatic therapy, healing, and EFT. Multi-sensory journey designed to reprogram limiting beliefs, heal trauma, and unlock peak potential. It's hosted by Preston Weeks, top global psychologist and the neuroscientist from London, Eldin Hassa, yours truly, the host of this podcast. So I am traveling from London, England, to partner up with Preston Weeks from Formula EQ Academy to host this 2-day health reset retreat. I will put all the information in the show notes about the event and about our sponsor. Looking forward to meeting you live in person at our 2-day retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona on March 29 and March 30. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Human Experience podcast. This is your host, Eldin Hassa. As you know, I'm in London, England, and my next guest is in United States. His name is Gary Malkin. I'm so excited. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, my followers, the Human Experience family. My next guest, he's also my twin. We have a same date of birth, not the same year, but May 25th. He's just like a couple of years older. So Gary Malkin, he is an Emmy award winning composer, world famous, who actually is also a speaker, and he dedicated his life and his career to help humanity, to elevate human consciousness through his music, through his work. So welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Eldin. What a lovely opportunity to be with you today. Thank you so much for the invitation.
My absolute pleasure. And yeah, we have some mutual friends, and I've been following your work for years, and I'm just so impressed with your health and vitality and your energy.
Hmm.
And you travel around the world doing all these amazing projects, and you won so many awards and accolades, and at the same time you're so humble. You're like, no, I'm just here, serving humanity with my skills, with my work, with my passion, with my love. And it just, I love you, man. I mean, you're amazing. You're an inspiration. I want to be like you when I grow up.
Well, you know the phrase, if you spot it, you got it. So whatever you see in me, you see it because it's inside of you. So that's how it works. That's the law of resonance in action right there.
Yeah. Well put. Well put. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
That
it. And like the vibe when you have that, if I delve deeper into science, like quantum entanglement, when you are entangling on a quantum level with another, yes, you are in United States, I'm in the UK, 5, 6, 7,000 miles away, but it almost feels that we are actually sitting in the same room side by side, and energy resonance is entangled. And this has
totally.
been like this even before this podcast recording, since the day I was like, oh my God, I was following your work, listening to your music, following your journey of your, you know, positive impact you are making on humanity. And I was like, wow.
Thank you. Well, you know, I until a few years ago, I didn't realize that when we listen together, whether we're actually in 3D together or we're 1,000 miles away, when we listen together and we actually use intent to raise our consciousness and to actually raise our sensitivity to being sensitive to how connected we are with the field, the unified field, there is no time or space or separation. And so what happens is, I was at the time that when this awakening came to me, I was going to name my book Resonance Intelligence or Vibrational Intelligence, because that's what I was really passionate about, is the common denominator of all humanity, of all world, of all universe is vibration. But vibrational intelligence isn't descriptive enough. It's the resonance of frequencies that is what requires consciousness to elevate, right? So then I thought, all right, resonance intelligence is my name title. And then I did this thing called 7 Days of Rest and Renewal by Shelley Ostroff and Jan Golding. They were based out of Israel, and they created for 8 years consecutive, the first 7 days of every year, was the profound offerings from every continent of ways that we can honor rest and relaxation and rejuvenation, right? So I did a thing 3 or 4 years ago called Rest in Resonance. And during that, I had some co-hosts, some rock stars that I love, Teresa Collins, Julie Kroll, and Dot Maver. And we formalized the space of an hour and a half every morning for 7 days where we'd listen together. Now, until that time, I was thinking we can't listen for more than a minute on Zoom because everybody's expecting to go yada yada for 25, 24 minutes, for every second of the hour. And I was a little reluctant to share the music. But when I stated the intent and I established the context and that the purpose for all of us was to drop into unitive consciousness and listen with the intent to arise and elevate and awaken a certain emotion, a certain intention, a certain gratitude, a certain focus of attention, something happened that was so trippy. And I suddenly realized I got the chills just even talking about it. That's when I decided that listening with a shared intention is a form of collective prayer that raises the frequency of human consciousness. And so,
Wow.
so when we started to listen, I suddenly realized that most of the music I've written for the last 25, 30 years has been all about opening the heart and connecting your soul to end the monopoly of the linear rational mind, which is, in my view, the Descartes phrase, I think, therefore I am, has been one of the most damaging axioms ever to hit humanity because it's what has created the mess we're currently in. In part, it's created the mess that believed that everything we want and everything we have to solve can be solved through the linear rational mind. Tell me how effective you think that's been for
It
200
has
years.
not. It has not. No. Yeah.
Very ineffective.
Yeah.
So what I noticed was the correlation happened for me as a huge aha was when we were listening with the intent to raise consciousness, to evoke gratitude, to awaken empathy, to cultivate compassion. Again, when it was very focused and dialed in. And then there were 1,200 people in 30 countries on these calls, right? That's when I realized there was something happening and it wasn't only subjective. And what I realized was that that's when I decided to change the name of the book I'm working on called The Listening Fire, reclaiming our primordial connection with ourselves, each other, and the earth. That's when I awakened to this recognition. And so now I'm not shy about sharing the music that I have been focusing on has, in a sense, predated my consciousness awareness, right? In other words, amidst all my neuroses and all my egoic problems and all my evolutionary things that every human being faces, one thing that I noticed was that the portal of creativity that I was given has been pristine from the beginning. And I'm not claiming that from hubris. I'm kind of just noticing by looking at the body of my work for the last 30 years that I've been utilized as a portal
Yeah.
to end the monopoly of the linear mind and to open and crack open our hearts. That's what I'm here for,
Yeah.
ready and reporting to duty. And so
You,
that's why I love your title of your work, the spiritual beings on a human experience. So that's the way I'd like to start today's podcast with that awareness.
wow. Wow, that's incredible. I mean, we can delve in so many places, and having kind of since childhood having this scientific approach to everything. Even though my podcast and everybody knows on my podcast my beliefs and my stance behind the meat suit, that's only a tiny percentage of who and what we are. But at the same time, for the people who are visiting this podcast for the very first time, everything Gary said, it's scientifically proven. The
Yeah.
quantum field, and actually, it's a man-made construct, this linear time and space, because according to the couple of experiments, there are so many, but two experiments, double slit experiment as well as the quantum entanglement experiment, the time and space does not exist. So in a double slit experiment, when there is no observer, the the particles act as waves, and when, depending on who is observing the particle act in unpredictable way. Thus the translation that our consciousness is creating reality as we say it's real. It doesn't actually exist. It just vibrates a different frequency. Even the ground you are walking on, the microphone in front of me, the computer, it's the vibrational energy vibrating at a different frequency, so we can experience it. And why do we, if we are just the spiritual beings, and why do we need the body? I have been asked this question, and I said, well, if you didn't have a body, how would you know what chocolate tastes like?
Exactly. And the umpteen other pleasures
Yeah,
that we're so
nice wine, or how would you know what the beautiful piece of music sounds like? The
and
first kiss,
and even
whatever.
sexual pleasure turns out to
Yeah,
be one of the most, if you've denied it, you recognize any portal for pleasure is a path to the divine, if it's done in with the kind of gratitude that is so important, right?
absolutely.
And presence, right? Presence.
Oh,
That's
being
my
mindful, that focus you were describing earlier. Actually, you probably read some of the ancient texts out of India, and they said, because a lot of these texts have been burnt and destroyed, because they didn't want the modern men to know these kind of truths, right? So what happened is the American CIA, right? They found these texts and they began to study them, and the Patanjali text in particular, and that's how they developed the program for remote viewing, so they can spy on the former Soviet Union to find out where nuclear weapons are. And they said, because this is yogi text, right? And they said, wait a minute. So does a person have to be a yogi and practice these techniques for 20, 30 years until they develop that skill? No, it could be done in a week. It could be done in 2 weeks. So the military cadets were trained by these instructors, the professional CIA teachers who cracked the code. They said it's just that focus in the present moment, and they use the technology from the scripts, from the scriptures, like candle. So you look at the candle, the flame, but you look at the dark part. There are different parts if you look at the burning candle. And then eventually, when you are in that space, then you close your eyes, and then something happens. That laser sharp focus begins to let you see without your eyes and let you see with your consciousness.
Yeah, this is also the work that my friends at the Monroe Institute actually got into. Yeah, so a lot of that remote viewing stuff used for the government. Yeah, and actually, the remote viewing, in a sense, is another form of resonance intelligence, right?
Yes.
Because one of the things I want to do is it's so one of the reasons why I'm so passionately engaged. Thank you so much for that very extensive scientific assessment. That's great. Used for nefarious purposes, but nonetheless still amazing. One of the things I'm a really deep advocate of is an organization called the Holo Movement. I don't know if you've heard of them, but the Holo
Name
Movement.
name rings a bell. Yes.
So they've just established themselves only 3 years ago. The holomovement.net. They had their second global gathering in Ibiza, Spain, last May 23rd during my birthday weekend,
Ah,
and they're not. There's no profit motive. There's no egoic motive. There's no thought leader at the top of it. It's meant as the movement of our times. That is the umbrella and the encasing community of all the organizations we know that are aware of the interconnectedness at every scale and every way, right? And so the Hollow Movement third global gathering is coming up in, of all places, Asheville, North Carolina, where I was hoping I would be living by now. But as I told you before we began the recording, I was heading there from being in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay, for I was there 52 years, and I head east very publicly, Facebook announcements. I'm heading to Asheville, and I arrived 2 days before the devastating hurricane, and and the rest is history. I couldn't stay there. The place I was going to move to was destroyed, and I moved up to Massachusetts, where I'm currently living temporarily until I figure out where I want to land. But the reason I bring this up is the Hollow Movement that is basically the organization that uses the science that the Nobel physicists, Nobel winning physicists, discovered. They built on the work of David Bohm. And they proved with the highest rigorous standards in physics that David Bohm's theory that Einstein was very leery of, he called it spooky science before he died,
Yes.
turned out to be validated by the work that happened a few years ago by these physicists. And for the first time now, the physicists are complete accord with what the indigenous people have known for time immemorial, which is
Yes.
that we are at every level interconnected, right? Which makes things like vibrational intelligence, resonance, and remote viewing possible, right? That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons it's true. So I'm giving a workshop there with my creative partner, Hope Fitzgerald, who is someone you must interview, by the way. Hope
Please.
Fitzgerald's the author of The Infinity Wave. And it's Pam Gregory from UK, one of the great astrologers that everyone loves, had her on twice in the last 6 months, and it's been remarkable how the response they've had to her. She and I have developed a course that we think is the most important thing that we're doing right now, which is essentially really about spiritual maturity. That our goal is to recognize that the human experience is never fully mature
No.
if you don't accept the reality of immortality in every day of your life, when you don't come back to remembering that you could disappear. You're going to disappear. You don't know how, you don't know when, but it's going to happen. And that greater than cognitive understanding of our impermanence is, it turns out, the catalyst for the kind of gratitude that makes for a grace-filled life, right?
Yeah.
So we're giving a workshop on grief literacy that brings you from me into resilience, which brings you into we, relational intelligence, which brings you into collaborative intelligence, which is the most important intelligence of our time right now. How we can relationally, maturely relate to each other, and so we can co-create with a full knowledge that this thing requires radical collaborative intelligence to get out of the mess we found ourselves in, right? So
Absolutely.
so that's what it's you-awake.com, and I can put it in the chat later. But
Yeah, we'll
so
we'll put it in the show notes. All of your offerings and all of even the one which is going to happen that you mentioned, it was in Ibiza and now it's coming to
now it's
Nashville.
in Nashville, right?
And
Color
what
Movement.
date is that going to be?
May 23rd to the 27th. I'm co-leading the post retreat with Hope and two other beloved friends at their Samasati
So
retreat
will
center.
there be like thousands of people attending, I guess?
No, it's about 300 people.
Oh,
It's
okay. All
it's
right. Well, still a decent number. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah. Uh,
less in Ibiza we had about 150, but it was
but now it's
amazing.
growing. It's
Oh
growing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I wanted to share something with you. So
Please, please
I'm
do.
going to give you an example of something. So what happens is, who knew that the that the catalyst to ending the addiction to the linear rational mind, which is infused by an addiction to the certainty and the speed of the mind, right? I mean, who doesn't at any part of every day get lost in the ability for the mind to get things done quicker than, it's basically speed and certainty that
Yeah.
is the addiction that many people find leaving, because the wisdom of the heart and the soul and the body, they move at a different frequency and a different pace, right? So I want to share with you
Absolutely.
an example of it. This is what I didn't even, I have a little video I want to share also, but I want to share with you an example of what happens. When you put music on, most music is created to be entertained and consumed and engaged, right? The music I've been loving what working on is music that instead of asking, it asks to listen to it, it's asking you to listen to you. So listen for a minute. Can you hear the
I
piano?
can, yes.
So just notice the sustain between the notes. And what happens is our natural multidimensional humanity is invited back home from the high myopia of the addicted linear mind to certainty and speed. You naturally start to want to breathe deeper. And when you breathe deeper, notice these long spaces. In those spaces are, I literally believe, as invitations to the frequency and the vibration of your heart, your soul, your body, come back home into integration with your mind as equal jewels in the crown of the human experience. And suddenly, there's no such thing as a pregnant pause. How could there be a pregnant pause in the face of the unlimited fullness of the implicate field of the unified universe, right?
Absolutely.
So you notice what happens is it dilates time. And when we dilate time, what happens is there's incredible intimacy in the space between us. Can you feel what's happening right now?
I can.
And it's the simplicity and the beauty and the spaciousness that seems to have a destiny to serve humanity, to bring us back home into wholeness with our heart, soul, and body, with our minds, not tyrannized by them. And suddenly, we're in a heart-centered mindfulness space suddenly.
Profound inner peace, homeostasis, and gratitude. That's what I'm experiencing.
Exactly, I got the chills that you said that. Who thought it would be so simple as to get simple with dilating time and beauty alone, to come back home to our innate wholeness that is available to us anytime we're ready to breathe into that spaciousness? Because the field is always there for us, ready to be embraced.
Absolutely. Wow.
I'll take it down now. So that, as a trained composer, the hardest thing for me was to finally start remembering that more is not more, that complexity is not more interesting, that having, like, I've written the scores to the famous documentary by Foster and Kimberly Gamble. You should interview him too. The Thrive movies. Have you ever heard of those
No,
movies?
please, I would, yes, yes, I have heard them. I donated when they first started the first movie. I've been following them for years. Yeah, I would love to
Yeah.
interview them.
So I did all the music for both of those films. I
Yeah,
was the
yeah,
composer for that.
yeah.
And
Incredible.
and it was a life-changing experience because I kind of left Hollywood, but for that opportunity he wanted me to score these films and I went like, no question. Hardest scores I've ever created in my life. But why I bring it up is I forgot why I brought it up. I forget. It was right in line with what we were talking about. I
Well,
got so out of time and
It,
space, I
it
forgot
is
what I was
it
saying.
is it is linked to also what their movies and documentaries are about. It's
That's
about
right.
the human consciousness, the state of homeostasis, the state of gratitude, the inner peace. You know how I word it. So this is how I, and this is again science. For people who think that like things are too woo woo. So I say, okay, human. body, if you will, physiology and biology, is like a piece of machinery. And our default state, like you buy a piece of machine and comes with the factory setting. So factory setting for humans, it's unconditional love, empathy, kindness, compassion,
Gratitude.
confidence, unity, gratitude, but it's all unconditional. And how do we feel? The cells, actually, the 50 trillion cells in the body, they thrive in the environment called homeostasis. And that's that home that you describe in the heart, the soul. So on every level, it's the home, right? Every other state, every other emotion is derived from stress hormones, from state of stress, fight or flight, stress, survival, and
Or or
no
or that
organism can survive in the state of stress for prolonged period of time. It actually dies, and this is actually proven by medical science that most of the ailments and doctors visits, about 80 no 80 98%, stem from self-perpetuated state of stress, by being disconnected to what you were describing, being disconnected to our default human setting.
It's beautifully said, Eldon. I love that language. Boy, you're good at that. It's excellent. Because what I've noticed is, every day, my core wound, my core shadow that I remind myself, I have to walk myself back from the ledge from, is that I forget that life happens for me, not to me, and I'm held by something so much larger than my little ego, right? And when I remember, no wonder I'm unhappy. I feel I'm believing in separation. I'm not feeling held by the larger force of what's actually holding me, right? So it's kind of a beautiful thing that I get instant feedback with feeling dysregulated when I think that I'm separate and I think I'm driving the bus, you know?
Yeah. This is it. I have to have certainty. I have to live in the known, and even going into the future, I must know what that is going to look like. But that's self-perpetuated suffering. That's like you are actually causing yourself to suffer, because,
Exactly.
where are you heading?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
the
No, and
life
this is
isn't.
this is one of the reasons why of all the things I'm doing right now, I'm completely consolidating my legacy for the last 25 years of I have hundreds and hundreds of wisdom films, audio tracks, spoken word alchemical wisdom. I innovated a way in which wisdom could be received by enhancing it with film score quality aesthetics. And that is something I'd love to talk about if we have a chance to talk
Please,
about
yeah,
it in this call.
yes.
But before I go there, I basically have I am in the process of pulling it all together into a GaryMalkin.com and a thing called a subscription-based site called Portals of Awe. And
Wow.
again, just like I played that piece, and it was sort of like a kind of a little bit of enchantment in time dilation, right? Another technique to get back into wholeness with the field is generating states of awe through the power of the what Thomas, what John O'Donohue says, the silent beauty, the silent embrace.
Yeah.
So beauty has a catalyzing effect to awe. And awe is a precursor to the unit of experience. So a lot of what I do is that in the C-suites I work with, the governing leaders and organizations, I'm starting to work with more of those people now. And what I realize is the game changer, Eldon,
Mm,
is
absolutely.
that people aren't walking around with an open heart. They're guarded. Their defenses are up.
Yeah.
Especially people with a lot of money. They're in the look good and feel good and playing the part. But what's they're being deprived of is the gift that Brene Brown talks about of authenticity and
Yeah.
transparency is the center of the birth of our innocence and our authenticity. It's all there, right? So music has a role to play in cracking us open so that we can be transparent, which is the only species that can be that vulnerable, that connected, quite like that, as with the consciousness, and the
Yeah,
and the ability that we have. So I'm on this new understanding of the role that I have to play, which is to work with other people who are doing transformative work, but change the game by working with, by getting them crack their heart open into remembering who they are and what matters most and how precious this fragile gift of life is, and then do the inner work because it changes everything. You know,
absolutely.
when you're when you're authentic and tender, and you actually know you're going to die and not just here, the body of work you can change around facing your shadow is inestimably more powerful. So
Absolutely.
that's why
Yeah,
I'm really passionate
absolutely.
about that these days.
Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful, and I love the fact that you mentioned a couple of times the unified field, the quantum field. Yes, we are experiencing certain challenges in the world, certain ailments, if you will. But I also know this is also a factual that by surrounding yourself with people and hosting these kind of events, as you said, like you just sat there, 12, 1,300 people on Zoom, and you just listen to the music with intent, you actually changed the vibrational frequency of planet Earth, because what you collectively were transmitting into the unified field was unconditional love, was gratitude, was peace, was beauty, was that heart centered, right? And the more people can intentionally do that daily, individually, who am I, one little one, to change the world? No. If you say that you can, and then the next one, then the next one, and that ripple effect, that's how you actually change the world. Because then eventually you wake up one morning, you leave the house, and you're like, everybody's so kind, everybody's so friendly. And you did that. You made a contribution from your energy resonance into the unified field.
You know, Eldon, you're blowing me away. Your language is just so beautiful. I'm just really impressed. I just put something in the chat. I want to give a shout out to what comes to mind and heart when you say this. My beloved friends, Julie Krull and Teresa Collins, who I mentioned earlier, co-hosted my Rest in Resonance program. They are just launched this project called Imaginal Souls in a new platform that is devoid of advertising. It's like a Facebook type thing, but it's only for people who are in alignment. So you don't have to deal with all the promotion, all the commercialism, all the aberrations and stuff, and some people that communicate things that are all about partisan divisiveness and stuff. So it's Imaginal Souls from Julie Kroll and Teresa Collins in a thing called the Connection Field. And just Google it. It's a
Yes.
beautiful way because what this came out of is Teresa Collins is the host of a program that HeartMath, you know HeartMath, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So
Uh,
HeartMath
McCready.
is
Yeah.
yeah, McCready. So HeartMath hosts a program with Teresa called the Global Coherence Pulse.
Yeah, I
And
know
what
it.
yeah, so you know it. That's essentially what their proven work is that they can actually measure the elevated frequencies of certain populations when more and more people are doing this thing. So it's really quite beautiful to see that these things are being proven. And I'm just giving a shout out to the Global Coherence Pulse and to the Imaginal Souls, which of
Yeah.
course is about Elizabeth Sahtouris, who just died. And she was the very first evolutionary biologist who came up with the analogy of our time, the chrysalis,
But
being the perfect way to describe us right now.
even before the Heart Maths Institute started doing these research, with the global meditations and coherence meditations and all these programs, there is a lot of data coming out during the times when there was, like, I think it was a 10-20 year war between Iraq and Iran. I'm talking in the 70s and the 80s, right?
Mm,
What they used to do, they used to send a bunch of advanced meditators to go into the neighboring cities on the border and
right.
just meditate for a week. What would that do is create ceasefire. No one was getting sick. The crime level went down to zero, and all of those, and this is all documented. And they didn't do it once, they did it multiple times just to to kind of like, it was an experiment. And
Right.
then obviously Heart Maths Institute is doing similar things, and they've organized things to meditate during, COVID, to raise human consciousness. So it's a known fact, when we are intentional and in alignment, actually enter into the quantum entanglement. All of those souls, they intertwine. It's like a tapestry weaving together, and now we are creating and co-creating the experiences of the world based on our unified energy resonance. Is incredible.
Yeah, Eldon, that's so beautifully said. And so two things I want to say. And I want to put a pin in one of them, which is why the music that dilates time is so important of a medicine at this time in history. But before I say there, I'd like to say that on the other side of this thing I'm going to share. First of all, when you mentioned the word woo woo, right? Everybody's
Hmm.
afraid of being too woo woo. My phrase is the old woo woo is the new wow.
I love that.
All
I
right.
love that.
So what I want to say is, from a meta consciousness, if
Hmm.
we're going to just look above us right this second, for me, I've developed kind of a intolerance, or intolerance, the wrong word, impatience, wrong word, a sensitivity to when the words start sucking all the humanity out of the air, right?
Yeah.
So when I start feeling that the words and the irrationality in a conversation is encroaching on our capacity to be in that spaciousness that we went to and there was music, I literally think of it like the soil has dried.
Uh,
It's time to irrigate the soil. So in the spirit of that, I'd like to share another irrigation tool that I've developed.
Please.
Heart irrigation, okay? So I'm gonna get out of the share the sound, I'm gonna go share the and this is an example of what I think you saw when Sharon McCrum and I created this thing called the Transformance. And it was basically, what would 2.5 minutes do at the beginning, middle, or end of a Zoom call that would, if not circumvent, possibly alleviate the propensity for we humans to fill the air with nothing but linear rational thinking, right? So as I play this, this was created specifically for the Unity.Earth community for this thing called 99 Days of Peace Through Unity, which is from World Unity Week in June to the end of September, the International Day of Peace in September. And we created these for that audience. And just imagine, you remember when Zoom started coming up with pictures in the back of you to kind of add dimension and color? So suddenly you have a bridge behind you, or the Golden Gate Bridge, or you have beautiful nature. I've been trying to get through to the CEO of Zoom to give them the science that shows that when you could create a short moment of shared beauty, that it changes the way people are receptive, retentive, and engaged in the content following it because people are more present. So you tell me if that's true. This is an example of a transformance focused on unity consciousness. And here it is.
You are invited to experience unity. It's time to put aside the differences that divide us. And embrace the beauty of each one of us being different, being unique, being ourselves. In the essence of who we truly are. A beautiful array of human beings across the planet. So many different ways of being human. So let us get to know each other let's spend time with each other. Let's learn from each other. And let's open our hearts to each other. And let's find the unity that exists right in the middle of the richness of our diversity. We are human. We are unique. We are one.
Wow.
And then what happens is we are easier in silence together after that experience. And
Amazing.
that's precious. What was your experience with that?
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. I had the pleasure of witnessing and listening and watching some of the work you did with our mutual friend Sarah McCrum before, but this one was wow, very profound. The video, the imaging, the sound, the her audio, what she was saying, the words, everything was just very well thought
Well,
through,
it was
and it
completely
just
completely
yeah.
improvised. Both of us
No, no,
completely
yeah, no,
improvised.
no. I listen. I know. I've had many conversations with Sarah. She was a guest on my podcast. I think now I'm in like close to 150 episodes, but she was on episode number 30. So 4 years ago, and yeah, and we just stayed in touch, and I supported her when she relaunched her book. I promoted her. I had her back on the
Fabulous.
podcast, and it's like that's what look, that's what we are here for, is because I think her book is very powerful. Yes, the title, but it is actually not about the money. It's about so much more than money, and it's incredible. And yeah, I really admire Sarah and her work, and when you kind of join together, you created a lot of magic and miracles together.
It's been such a blessing for me. She is the cleanest wisdom keeper I work with, and I've worked with many of them. And there's just this pristine quality to her consciousness that I just adore. I adore working with her. So yeah, I'm so glad. And also Eldon, the way you articulate things is really beautiful. I'm really
Thank you.
impressed with, I mean, I feel very resonant with everything we're
Th-
saying, you
Thank you
know?
so
So
much.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
I was
questions.
gonna I was
Yeah.
gonna say, so you mentioned a few offerings that you have, and to me, obviously you've been a composer and music being one of your loves of your life, if you will. I definitely would say, so when I do fully immersive experiential kind of retreats and teachings and in-person workshops, that those are the ones I run. um I actually get them to wear blindfolds for about 90% of their time, and it's just these very powerful neuroscience backed breathwork techniques, meditations, coupled with very powerful music. There's then somatic therapy, EFT, EMDR. So it's like a lot of release, that thing that you were saying. Like basically, they enter into the theta brainwave state where conscious mind is switched off, the monkey brain is switched off, and now it's just they are in the no time, no space, no identity, no body, just pure consciousness.
Mm.
And then the door is wide open for the subconscious mind for me to do the work. And that's
Beautiful.
the kind of work that I love doing. And that's why I'm doing one in London actually, March 22nd. And then a week later, I'm doing a 2 day event in America, in Arizona. So,
Wow. Well, you have to send me the information because I have friends in that region, and I'd love
okay.
to let them know about you because you're doing beautiful work as well,
Thank you so
Eldon.
much. And I just saw, listen, I'm putting it out there into the universe, into unified field. I see this vision. Gary and I, we are wearing white, like kind of linen white. And we are co hosting this retreat where Gary is providing the music and also some guidance. And I am guiding with Gary's music. So it's not a speaking event, it's transformational breakthrough experience event.
Fabulous. Well, it's so funny you say that because I just had the great privilege of doing this with a very, very wealthy, multi-generational family that owned one of the largest utility companies in Canada, and they asked me to help them get back on track as a family, emotionally and spiritually,
Wow.
and a lot of what we did deep inner work around authentic authenticity and truth telling, with music kind of cracking our hearts open to our innocence and our transparency. And
Unbelievable.
and one of the things that I love doing for workshops is that invariably there'll be a point after the cognitive section of your talk where you drop people into a guided meditation, right? And the moment you start speaking from that alpha, the place that's generated more of a alpha, hopefully gamma one day space, is that when you bring either live or recorded music in to blend with that, it adds this quality of people are like immediately receptive to the invitation to get out of your heads and into your heart.
Absolutely.
It's how we're wired. And what happens is, that famous Maya Angelou quote, people don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel.
Very
And,
true.
and the biggest mistake that academia and medicine and they make with their conferences is such
Um,
dry, ridiculous evidence, research only, and they
death
don't
by
communicate.
PowerPoint.
Yeah. And I had the great opportunity to give a talk to about 30 professors at a university, and it was incredible. And I don't have the time to tell you the whole story, but bottom was I felt like I was a fly on the wall watching a bunch of academics the way they talk, and they were reading this incredible thing by Rachel Carson about the state of the earth 40, 50 years ago that she wrote. And I stopped him, or no, after he finished it, I said, can we do an experiment? And I just put on the kind of music I put on earlier that's about spaciousness. And I said, can you read that again? And I'll let the music impact the way you read it so you can feel what's being said, not just think it, right? The moment you started
Oh,
reading, all the women in the room, the professors,
I'm so
started,
sorry.
all the women started tearing up. And suddenly the heart was present. And I thought, what could academia be? What could medicine be? What could government be if you allowed space for our human capacity to feel before you made big decisions rather than as entertainment only? That's my dream. That's the vision. That's what I'm here for, Eldon. So anybody that wants to play in changing our lives through the heart and the soul engagement, call me. That's where I'm interested.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And I love the way you described it, cracking the heart wide open. It's the first step. And, through music, through your guidance, through, authenticity, and, you cannot be anything or anyone else but, pure consciousness, authentic when your heart is wide open. And I think you also, with your guidance and your music, you help people to feel safe, to feel vulnerable, because
Mm,
in order for them to be ready and willing to crack their heart wide open, they need to feel safe and vulnerable.
I agree.
So I think your work is so beautiful, so inspiring. And yeah, I mean, you have been doing it for a couple of years, and yeah, you're doing great. Keep going.
I just took a picture of us because I want to record this moment.
Yeah,
It's
please.
such a pleasure being with you, Eldon. You really are a special being, and I really, really appreciate you. And we're very much in alignment, that's for sure. We
What,
see the world.
twins?
very similar ways. So I've
Yeah.
enjoyed this so much. The work that I would love people to check out on streaming is this thing called Graceful Passages, A Companion for Living and Dying, and Unspeakable Grace, the music only of that work. It's the thing that I'm most proud of, other than maybe the Thrive scores. It's 24 years ago it came out, and it's called by experts the most effective non-pharmacological tool for alleviating fear and anxiety around serious illness and death. And Michael Stillwater and his wife Doris invited me to co-create it with them. And to this day, it's touched over 1 million people, getting out of the cognitive understanding exclusively around our mortality, right? And what is the purpose of something like that? People say, why would I want to focus on death and dying? The result is a radical gratitude for life's preciousness that uplifts your energy and makes you a hell of a lot more fun to be around with your family, your spouse, your children, because it's like how you realize how precious life is.
Yeah.
It's not morbid, it's precious, it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's actually what you get in return, health and vitality, and you get to begin to thrive in life instead of just surviving.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I have one last question. I know already kind of like what your mission is and what your mission has been for years, but what is the impact you would like to have on humanity while you are here?
Mm. My goal is to use the power of music and immersive media to create a more heart and soul centered life on
Amazing.
this planet, to raise the willingness for people to recognize the precious miracle this life is, and understanding its impermanence is one of the catalysts that actually will create more heart and soul and gratitude centered living. That's my like when we feel that way, when we live that way, when we remember that life happens for us, not to us, to get there. I really believe that even just changing 1% of the planet will actually create the critical mass to make that happen faster than it would if it would just recede in the background and just focus on greed and win-lose philosophies. That's not the way. I call this phase in America the last gasp of the dinosaurs, or the last gasp of the caterpillar cells.
Yeah, yeah,
So this
beautiful,
is a this is
beautiful.
a as Barbara, my friend Barbara Marx Hubbard used to say, this is not a death. This is a death birth. This
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah. It's the things that kind of look ugly, they had to come to surface to be reborn, if you will, you know.
agreed.
The masses who were actually fast asleep for decades, not people like you and I, they had to see all the bad and ugly to say, whoa, are you saying don't trust the government? Are you saying don't trust the medical cartel? Are you saying don't trust so and so? Are you saying this is the corruption here and there? Well, that's why those things came to light, which we knew about for decades. You and people like you and I, right? So it kind of might appear it's ugly, but it's rebirth. It's
It
rebirth.
is. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
And by the way, Eldon, if you can, I put some things in the chat that are
mhm,
the websites that I'm
yeah,
most
yeah.
engaged in, and
And
you can.
if you have a preferred, so I will share everything um in this podcast, in the show notes, all the links and everything. And also, if you have a preferred uh, bio, like, and preferred photo for the
I,
podcast,
s-
it's
I,
gonna
s-
be, you
I
sent it
s-
already. Perfect. So I will share everything in the show notes, and I will let you know. But before, I will actually share our group photo of today's podcast immediately today, and I'm going to share with everyone how excited I am for having had you on my podcast, The Human Experience. And I know that you and I can have a million conversations, so a million hours, right? So I'm happy to invite you and have you back again, and have you share some more your inspiring work and the impact you are making on humanity, and share any offerings. You are welcome anytime.
Thank you. Well, in a few months, I'm going to have the GaryMalkin.com and portalsofawe.com
I'm
built.
happy to have you then when
And
the portal is live and help you promote that work. And also, yeah, all the friends that you mentioned that they should come as a guest on my podcast, please, drop
send
them an
them.
email and or any way that you communicate, and I would love to have them as guests on my podcast.
Fantastic. I
Thank
forget
you
who I
so
already
much.
recommended, but I'll remember, I'm sure.
So you've mentioned the two ladies that
Julie Kroll and Teresa Collins.
Collins, and
But
also
then,
the
oh, Hope Fitzgerald. Yes.
yes, the Thrive, the Thrive
Oh,
Thrive.
and then they're interviewing much less these days, but I can
Yeah, but
try. I
let's
can try.
try. Let's try. I mean, listen, I was told that Mark Victor Hansen is a busy man, and then years later he endorsed my latest book, which got released in October. He is the one who endorsed my book. I
Congratulations. The
sent him the
love,
menu, the Love Reset,
I love
Neuroscience
that.
Tools for Self-Love and Happiness.
Is it on Audible yet by any chance?
Not yet. It's on as Kindle and hardcover,
I
because
really want to see it.
it's kind of like a 12 months training program in the book that you use it twice a day.
I can't wait to learn more about it. That sounds
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Thank you
Eldon,
so
thank
much.
you
All right.
so much. What a
God
great
bless.
experience.
And I'm looking forward to the day that I meet you in person and give you a big hug. You my twin, and we cannot wait. Like, I don't know, long. Maybe in the next 12 months, I'm gonna make that happen.
Well, we have to get that linen white suit so we can co-create a workshop together.
Sounds amazing to me. All right.
Bye.
God bless. Take care. Bye
Take
bye.
care.
Thank you. Welcome to another episode of the Human Experience Podcast. This is your host, Eldin Hassa. Today's episode is sponsored by Formula EQ Academy, formulaeq.com. They are actually running a 2-day health reset retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona on March 29 and March 30. It is actually a neuroscience-based theta rewiring experience, fully immersive, using as many of the 5 senses, the ultimate mind-body reset. You will get utilizing theta brainwave activation, guided meditations, breathwork, somatic therapy, healing, and EFT. Multi-sensory journey designed to reprogram limiting beliefs, heal trauma, and unlock peak potential. It's hosted by Preston Weeks, top global psychologist and the neuroscientist from London, Eldin Hassa, yours truly, the host of this podcast. So I am traveling from London, England, to partner up with Preston Weeks from Formula EQ Academy to host this 2-day health reset retreat. I will put all the information in the show notes about the event and about our sponsor. Looking forward to meeting you live in person at our 2-day retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona on March 29 and March 30.